Welcome to a very special short and shivery episode of One More Story Before 12, the true crime podcast that seeks to unearth the obscure and forgotten cases of the past, to dredge the facts up, and deliver tales of unconfessed crimes and buried wickedness. If that is what brings you to us, the prospects of hearing horrors, then you shall not go unrewarded. Since today is Halloween, I wanted to share a particularly macabre tale with you about a house that, for all intents and purposes, might as well be haunted. This episode will differ slightly. The facts of the matter will be rather brief and concise, as there is little material the layman presenter might consider bountiful, or in some cases even extraneous. What little is known is presented here. No books or extended essays exist on the matter, and the documents relating to the crimes have apparently either been lost or destroyed. The second half of this episode will be my own personal recollection from the scene of this crime, including photos and a video, footage filmed by one of my colleagues. Resting comfortably? Bundled up nice and tight? Then listen as I tell you the story of Jozef Pluta, the vampire of Marianowo. The setting of our story is once again Poland. However, it is now during the Polish People's Republic, during the year of 1973. The exact location? Marianowo, a tiny township whose population barely reaches 1,000. It's a small hamlet, not unlike many that are scattered around the countryside. What is special about this one, however, is the fact that a certain man resides there. A man called Jozef Pluta. Little is known about his personal and early life. The few scraps of information are as follows. Jozef Pluta was a young man with a family, consisting of a wife and 5 children, the youngest one being 3. To support them, he is employed as a forest worker in the nearby woods, carrying out rather difficult and physical jobs. He also is a possible roofer and farmer. Accounts vary on this matter. His rather striking good looks and appearance make him a favorite of the local ladies. However, Pluta has other things than flirtation on his mind. In fact, to some of the people and residents of the village, he is considered something of a pervert, with sex constantly on his mind, hounding his every little deed. Small oddities about him. Soon, however, the town would see just exactly what type of horrors he would unleash. During the cold night of February 27th, 1973, Aniela B., a neighbor of Pluta's, decided to use her outhouse before going to bed for the night. As she walked out into the cold and snow-covered ground, she heard some type of commotion coming from her barn. Worried about the strange sounds, fearing one of her animals might be in distress, she gingerly walked over and opened the door, not expecting to see the following. For there was Jozef Pluta in mid-coitus with one of her sheep. Shock was soon replaced with anger, and Aniela started screaming and threatening Pluta, promising to expose him as a zoophile, or zoophiliac, to the entire town. As she began storming out of the barn, a growing sense of anger and panic started to encompass Pluta, for if she spoke the truth, his entire life would be in ruins. In a sudden rush of panic, he grabbed a nearby blunt object. Some have either stated this to be a hammer or the blunt side of an axe, and chased after Aniela, striking her viciously with said object over the head and proceeding to strangle her until she died. Not wanting to waste any time, he dragged her corpse to the nearby shores of the Varta River and dredged the body inside, hoping the strong current would take the body far, far away from the village. Pluta then returned home, left his cold, soaking boots in the attic, and visibly shaken, went back to bed, attempting to sleep. Meanwhile, Aniela's husband is growing visibly concerned during all this. His wife should have returned a significant while ago, and yet minutes passed and she had not yet returned. She had been missing for over half an hour. He goes out into the snow and witnesses some sort of struggle that had transpired, a struggle that was not there earlier in the night, and he sees a bloody trail showcasing something heavy being dragged to the nearby river. In a sudden rush, he goes to inform the authorities, and within a short period of time, Jozef Pluta is arrested, being the first and foremost suspect of the murder. Little proof was needed. The footprints led back to his house, and his own shoes were soaking wet, where he left them in the attic to dry. Upon the discovery of his shoes, Pluta broke down and confessed to the crime in exquisite detail, being dragged out of the house with his 3-year-old son still clutching at his pant legs and asking, "Where is Daddy going?" Little did he know it would be the last time he would ever lay eyes on his house and family. The Poznan courts find Pluta guilty and sentence him to a surprisingly light sentence, perhaps because he was a first-time noted offender. 12 years in a state penitentiary. Once there, Pluta is constantly harassed and threatened by other inmates over his sexual encounters with a sheep. They threaten his life, promising to kill him when they have the chance. There are rumors that he is sexually assaulted twice, though these are not substantiated in any way. After a short stint in the prison, Pluta begins feigning symptoms of illness, madness, insanity. Unsure if he is actually insane or simply putting up a front and playing them for fools, he is nonetheless transferred after 2 years to a psychiatric hospital in nearby Obrzyce. It turned out to be a godsend for Pluta, who quickly gained the trust and confidence of the hospital staff. Courteous, polite, hardworking, he was often given various menial jobs around the vicinity, eventually being given leave and allowed to work in other places, sometimes for multiple days at a time. One doctor a Dr. Henrik K., even allows Pluta to work on his household in Suchy Las, translated as the dry forest, forming a friendship with him. Staff considered him reliable, trustworthy, and even when he was given leave for multiple days, he always returned without a single incident or delay. All these good times, however, ended in September 1979, when Pluta was informed he would have to leave the hospital and return to the prison to finish out the remainder of his sentence. Fear instantly gripped Pluta. He knew what tortures awaited him at the hands of other inmates if he returned, possibly even death. Throwing caution to the wind, Pluta escaped the hospital during the night of September 9th and fled into the darkness, leaving behind a grim and bloody trail in his wake, as people would soon discover. September 10th, night. Pluta finds himself in the tiny village of Pąchy, an area difficult to find even now, isolated from the modern world and enshrouded in a thick forest. This place seems secluded now. Think how it might have been over 40 years ago. In the darkness. There he comes across the home of Teresa S., an acquaintance he met during his stay at the hospital. Pluta had her address written down in a notebook he always carried on his person. Teresa is a bit surprised to see him, but she invites him to stay the night and have dinner with her family, unaware of the fact that he is a fugitive on the run. It is not exactly known what transpired after. Perhaps an argument of sorts breaks out. Maybe someone recognized the fact that Pluta was on the run. Or simply, maybe it was nothing at all. What is known, however, is the grisly aftermath, soon discovered by the militia the following morning. Sometime during or after dinner, Pluta had grabbed an axe and viciously attacked Teresa. Multiple lacerations covering her body, her head almost crushed in by the strong blows delivered by Pluta. She was found in the kitchen, nearby her husband Jan, who had similarly been cruelly attacked. At some point, their 13-year-old daughter, who was playing outside, had heard the commotion, and, figuring it was her parents simply fighting, decided to return back home to maybe help break up the fight. This sadly proved fatal, as she was raped and then systematically butchered just like her parents. There was one more person in the household, a senior man called Jan, who was either a distant relative or simply a farmhand who helped around the place. At 80 years old, it is not quite known what his relation to the family was exactly. Either way, he too was attacked and killed with the axe so as to leave no witnesses to the crime. He was killed in the barn, and his body was either discovered there or on a nearby sofa inside of the house wrapped up in a tarp. Accounts on this differ. How is it then that the crimes were discovered so quick? Quite simple. Teresa had a 23-year-old son who was currently undergoing military duty and returned home the next morning on official leave. As he opened the door, he wasn't greeted with the sight of his loving family awaiting him. He was struck with the signs of carnage, bloody walls and feathers from destroyed pillows strewn about. He got the militia involved right away, but the horrors and burden of what he witnessed was simply too much for him. Roughly 2 years later, he committed suicide by hanging himself in the kitchen, the very same kitchen where his mother was killed by Pluta. After this massacre, Pluta continued on into the countryside, stealing bread and milk from farmsteads during the night and hiding out wherever he could in various forests, woods, and abandoned ruins. Eventually, he came across Suchilas in the home of Henrik K., the doctor on whose house he worked on some time ago. It is unknown if he was invited in or simply attacked during the night. All is known is that the family of Henrik K., who himself was away during this incident, was viciously attacked, resulting in the death of his wife Kristina and the critical condition of his son and grandparents. Even though they survived the attack, one of the grandparents passed away not long after in the hospital, and apparently the son suffered severe mental damage and various ailments due to the attack, and was rumored to have been placed in a ward before passing away shortly himself. These statements, however, are not confirmed. Fear began gripping the local populace. His infamy began to grow. People began speaking about a vicious vampire on the loose, prowling the streets and darkened alleys with an axe in hand, looking for potential victims. Beware, beware of the empty streets and dark corners, mothers would warn children, or Pluta will come get you. He had become a local boogeyman. People would report seeing him in multiple places, sometimes during the same night, leading to more confusion and growing paranoia and panic. Local poems and grisly rhymes accompanied these deeds, uttered in fear on various school playgrounds by various children. This butcher finally met his end on October 29, 1979. Despite increased rumors and hysteria, some local gossip claimed Pluta was hiding out in the nearby village of Karna, being spotted by 3 farmers. A lynch mob of local people was soon formed, and grabbing torches, knives, pitchforks, scythes, whatever they could get their hands on, they went forth, along with the then rallied militia, who was quickly dispatched to the area, attempting to locate Pluta. A perimeter was established, and soon encircled the small woodlands outside Karna, the wall of men closing in on Pluta with every step. Anxiety and tension began to rise. They went deeper and deeper into the woods. Soon, someone noticed something up in the trees. There, hiding on the very tops, was Jozef Pluta. Exercising caution, since apparently Pluta was an expert knife thrower, there were various attempts made to bring him down. At first calling to him, then other officers attempting to climb trees to assuage him and force him to get down, until it was finally decided that the tree itself would have to be cut down, with Pluta still on it. What happens next is uncertain and rife with mystery. The official version goes as such. Upon seeing his moments were numbered, Pluta made a haphazard and slapdash noose from some spool he was carrying, and hanged himself. However, the spool was too thin, and the wire eventually snapped. His body, toppling to the ground, hit every conceivable branch along the way, cracking his skull in the process, until his lifeless body slammed onto the ground, eyes wide open and face twisted in a horrifying grimace. Others state that Pluta was simply shot by the local officers, who then proceeded to stage a suicide rather than fill out the necessary paperwork. Rumors began to abound afterwards that Pluta never killed anyone, in fact, and he was only a convenient patsy to pin some unsolved crimes on, that he had only killed one person. and all the rest were simply attributed to him. These claims, however, were never substantiated in any form. It's even unknown what happened to his body. Some claim he was buried right there and then, others that his body was donated to a local medical college for students to practice on. Whatever happened, the mystery of Jozef Pluta continues to grow with various questions, scant details, and numerous gaps that quite possibly will never be filled in. While it may be disappointing to have so little concrete information, the case of Pluta is a fascinating one. During the month of August 2022, I was given a chance to visit the home in Ponche with a group of urbex explorers and see the house myself. It was a haunting experience. A small farmstead in the middle of the woods, uncanny during the daylight and probably even more so at night. The house was apparently lived in twice after the murders, the second time by a group of Belgians who apparently took apart cars and had a mechanics or scrap shop. Remnants of one of these cars can still be found in a barn, as well as various scattered Dutch magazines and paperwork. A lot of the original architecture is still in place, and one is immediately struck with a sense of eerie calm upon visiting the kitchen, where someone printed out the militia report of Pluta that was run in the newspapers and left it nestled on a cabinet, a grim reminder of the events that transpired here over 40 years ago. I'd like to thank 4 special individuals in the presentation of this case: Michał Ladek, renowned author and true crime podcaster, for introducing me to the case, as well as Włóczygile, Anna, Ella, and Karina for taking me to the scene of the incident and accompanying me to some truly incredible places. I would also like to thank them for the photos, for without them, none of this could have happened. As the soft cries of another Halloween depart, so too must I. I'm sure I'll have one more story for you before the year is out. But until then, I bid you all farewell for now, and I will see you all soon in one more story before 12.